So first, I am Ian Harris. I'm the CEO and president of Libero Copper. I'm also a mining engineer. And I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking very briefly about copper and the Libero story, because it's a little bit different. It's about creating value through advancing projects through that segment of the Lassonde curve post-resource as it approaches and gets closer to production. Of course, lots of forward-looking statements, so I encourage everyone to do their own due diligence. But in summary, we have the Mocoa asset in Colombia. It's already a very large copper asset. It already contains 4.6 billion pounds of copper. That's 2 million tons of copper. And on top of it, it's one of the largest undeveloped molybdenum resources in the world, with about 400 million pounds of moly. That's about a world's production of moly, to put it into perspective. But a big change and a big start of this story came in the early of 2024, in February and March, when Frank Giustra, who is famous for financing some of the most important precious metal stories in 2000s, has come back, re-energized, and wanted and saw the potential of copper, and came on board as one of the primary shareholders. And now Libero is part of the VRIC group. So when I talk, the value for Libero is taking important asset, getting it moving forward towards construction where value can be created. Right now in market, there's a bifurcation and valuation of the projects that are sitting, not doing anything, and kind of, I call it a Class A copper asset. And Mocoa has everything in terms of the quality of the asset. It's more of demonstrating that it is moving forward. Myself, I previously started the construction of the Mirador project. It went on to become the first industrial scale mine in the history of Ecuador. It's currently expanding to 150,000 tons per day. It will be one of the 20 largest copper mines in the world. Director Ernie Mast at Inmet, he was CEO of Cobre Panama, got all the permits in place. First Quantum came on, bought it, went on to construct it. Over the last 10 years, there's been very few greenfields copper, large-scale copper projects built on the planet, maybe 4 or 5, and that we've been involved with 2 of them. Is a unique experience that we wanted to apply from the beginning of a project, post-resource, and advance it and move it forward. Frank, obviously, lots of experience in Colombia, co-founded Aris, which is the current largest gold producer in this case, but one of the largest metal producers in Colombia. So everything started to come together last year. Quality asset, quality team, and quality sponsorship. Mocoa is in the Jurassic Belt. In that area, if you look between Mirador and Warintza, Fruta del Norte is also in that same belt, but between Mirador and Warintza is about 75 kilometers. In that Jurassic belt is about 40 billion pounds of copper has been discovered in that area so far, in just that very small 75 kilometer stretch of the Jurassic Belt. At Mocoa, we're sitting in that same prolific belt, and we also control about 75 kilometers of it, almost 800,000 hectares within that, and that's not even correct. It's 80,000 hectares. There's a 0 extra there. But it's also located next to high-tension power lines, 220 kVA power lines, next to a road network, next to the town of Mocoa, next to airport, and luckily no one actually living in the resource area. As I said, we re-cleaned up the company. It's got 4 key directors, including Ernie, and also on the ground, Thiana Alvarez, our country manager, part of some of the biggest permits in Colombia. Also just recently named one of the most influential women in Colombia for the work she's doing on the energy transition. And Edwin, our QP, and one of the few QP geologists in Colombia. Very small, powerful team. Of my 30 years, 25 are living in South America. I currently live in Colombia and I'm fluent in Spanish. I like being close to these projects because I believe there's a way that you need to set them up properly in order for them to become future mines. Also cleaned up the structure last year, did a couple financings. Each one has been, first one 15 cents, 25 cents, then at 30 cents. Cleaning up the balance sheet, getting us positioned, getting things moving forward. Between Frank and the VRIC group and management is about 29%. So we're very, very clean and a perfect platform to launch. Won't waste too much time on copper, except for to say that right now that short-term pricing is by short-term focused events, that overall the long-term supply and demand is not being priced into copper price. I've heard people, and I'm a believer too, that eventually copper needs to go to that $9, $10 per pound pricing to really incentivize the demand required, because the demand is there, because it's layered on traditional use plus energy transition plus data centers, et cetera. This is new demand that's coming in. The new production that's come out of copper recently has come out of brownfields projects. They've been squeezed in expansion projects. There's been very little investment. I think over the last 30 years, there's been 250 discoveries in copper, but only 5 in the last decade. There has not been new discoveries. There's not a portfolio of new greenfields projects. So having a project of size, scale, near to surface that can actually provide that demand when the world needs it, and that's what we're positioning Mocoa for. As I said, it's already got 4.6 billion pounds of copper contained. It's in the very prolific Jurassic Belt. And back in 2022, we put the first hole into the project, and it was over 1,000 meters at an average of a 0.55% copper. That's from top to bottom of the hole. Unfortunately, at the same time were Colombian elections, and we went back to basics and went back to build strength over that time period. But recently, we have restarted drilling. The hole 2 years ago was one of the top 10 best holes in copper in the world on a copper-only basis, and about 30% of the value is moly, and that's just one hole. But recently, we have restarted drilling. The last hole was MD44. It was over 1,100 meters at a 0.45 copper equivalent. That is not an intersection within that. It is the entire hole from surface to the bottom of that hole. It's completely mineralized, and it demonstrates the size and scale potential. I also call it one of the backbones to the expansion that we're doing on the project. And we are currently on that hole that came out on January 6th. If it was drilled in the first quarter, I'm still waiting for the second half of the year, but if it was drilled in the first half of the year, it would have been one of the 10 best holes in the world, and it's just one hole on our first hole. If you would consider the moly component of that hole, it would be even better. And that's important to demonstrate the size and scale potential of Mocoa. But if you look at the last 2 holes drilled, and we're continuing to drill now, that's over 1,000 meters one direction. You can see the hole. The first one went to the west, the second one up through the north. It's actually a step off from the previous drilling on the project. Those are about, at the bottom of those holes, it's about 1,000 meter between each one. Both are mineralized from top to bottom. They're really defining the expansion potential of the program that we're going to be doing. It really highly de-risks the program, but also demonstrates the size and scale. There are very few projects in the world that can drill 1,000-meter holes from surface and be mineralized from top to bottom. And those are 2 holes. On top of the hole we're drilling now, you can see it down. It's going more to the southwest, because the other thing that happened this year is that we were able to redefine the western boundary of the forestry reserve on the project. That has now been moved. That opens up the western side of the project, and we're going to be relooking at the mineralized zone, because you can see a western trend and you can see a northern trend, to redefine that, because we see the expansion potential there. But on the top of the 14,000 meter program, we would like to take this from the 600 million tons that are currently in resource and take it over that billion-ton mark, because that will put it into a class of itself where there's very, very few projects that are over 1 billion tons, near surface, can get into production quickly when the entire world needs it. And as I explained, how do we create value in the meantime? Is by demonstrating the project is moving forward, because there's a bifurcation in valuation. To take it where we are today, 0.2 or 0.3 cents per pound in the ground, demonstrate it's moving forward. It has the team, it has the sponsorship. Get it to that cent per pound in the ground, and you're talking about a 4 or 5x for our shareholders to move forward as it continues to create value as we're moving forward. Doing it in the Libero way, focusing heavily locally. That's why I live there. It's more than just if the local community likes you, they have to feel a part of it. You have to develop a national reputation. We've done many special things on the ground, but some of the more important ones is we have now officially started working with the First Nation that is closest to the project. A governor has come out. We've formalized that process, and very happy that on the basis of that platform, she was reelected in December of this year, and we'll continue to see her as the governor of that First Nation. And has led to a national reputation where we're rated as probably the highest or second highest exploration company in Colombia by Colombian government and local locals themselves was the platform for launching this, and it's one of the reasons why political will has been developed and we've been able to move the forestry reserve outside of our current resource area. We're seeing everything going the right direction in Colombia with elections coming up in 2 years. We now have financing, so we have all the pieces together to create significant value for our shareholders moving forward. Thank you.